Welcome to Nourishing the Mother, where inspired women talk about the journey of motherhood through the common thread of parenting, relationship, and sexuality as a path to consciousness. We ask, in what ways can we show up more fully, live more meaningfully, parent more wholly, and love more unconditionally? How can we mine the wisdom from the experiences of our lives and expand into those challenges? If you are here, you care about paving a path of conscious and intentional motherhood, connected with yourself and your gifts, and also illuminating your children in theirs, so we may raise more whole humans who can impact this world in a more humane way. And if you feel like giving a little back to this free content, please become a patron of the show and receive extra member benefits for less than a coffee a month. Or you can leave a review on iTunes and Facebook, all of which helps the podcast keep going and reach more mamas who need this type of tonic for the soul. Head on over to patreon.com/NTM podcast to find out more. We are Julie Tenner and Bridget Wood, and we are so grateful you're here.
Hello and welcome to Nourishing the Mother. I'm Bridget Wood.
And I'm Julie Tenner. And today's podcast is You See the World as You Are, Not as It Is. And it's probably one of our most favourite sayings, isn't it, Bridget? So that's where we're taking the conversation today, is the law of transparency and reflection as it plays out in your world, and how it can make, when you really start to see it, it can make your parenting, your life and your relationship more easeful. And that is for Soul Driven Motherhood this month, where we are spending the whole month looking at practices and processes to make your mental state and therefore emotional and physical state more easeful as you move through your world. So what do I want you to do? I want you to jump onto nourishingthemother.com.au, scroll on down to the red banner, drop in your email address, and once every so often we send you off a little love note that's just a little bit about what's going on, and you can pick and choose where you'd love to dive deeper. And let's move into today.
Yeah, so I guess it's a little bit of a spiritual and a scientific conversation, this one, which we really hope that we can bring clarity to through story. But I will start with, I guess, a tiny little bit of theory to get the idea across to people, because it can be a little bit of like a what? Like, what do you mean? Like, you can, everything that you see is you, and that you're creating, what you perceive. And the premise of this is that if you're familiar with the work of Dr. Joe Dispenza, who talks a lot about the brain and spirituality and science and human potential, and he explains that the amount of sensory data that we are faced with in actuality, in terms of what's actually around us, is so vast that if we were to compute that in our brain, we would almost like combust. Like, it's impossible for our brain to be able to make sense of all of the data around us. It's just too much. So we make sense of about 1% of what's around us, and that 1% is organized according to our highest values. So our brain is essentially a values seeking, or telos seeking, which is your end in mind. Teleology is a Greek kind of philosophy which is all about the individual pursuit of their end in mind. And so the brain is a telos seeking organ. So it wants you to experience more of you through the world. So it's filtering the world based on what your life is demonstrating is most important to you. And it will filter out, you just won't see the other stuff. So that is the premise of the law of reflection, in a sense. Like, you are seeing yourself. So that's, and then I think is it Caroline Myss or someone who talks about this concept of, like, even Rumi talked about this, like, what you seek is seeking you. Like, you move towards something and that same thing moves closer toward you. which I think is kind of, it's just so, it's beautiful, and it leaves you open. It just opens, for every answer you have 10 more questions, right? Which we love, and so that is kind of how I want to frame it in terms of the functionality of the way that your biology works to demonstrate this law. And then I think one of the best ways that you and I see it come to life is, of course, in our daily life with our kids and with our partners and with friends and with challenges as well, right?
I really love everything you said. And I think the way that I think about it is much like physics, which is simply that light refracts or bounces off of another object and bounces right back. And it's essentially how we have vision, right?
Yeah.
Energy of different masses, and it bounces off each other. And here we have what one might call an illusion of this solid world. So if you kind of transplant that here, your light, an energetic frequency, and every time you're looking at something, yet that light is bouncing off of that thing and coming back to you. So in a way, everything outside of you is a mirror. It's like having a whole heap of mirrors all the way around you, and you're constantly bouncing back the reflection of the self based on that object or density of energy frequency. So I remember being in I remember first studying, but then lecturing in university and talking about the holographic universe. And I wish I could go back now and talk about that now, because I understand it in a completely different way. The way that we were trying to teach it in there, just kind of, it didn't land. I was like, yeah, we're all one, blah, blah, blah. But now I really get it. And I'm like, oh, the holographic universe. Yes, every fractal of that whole image is literally repeated within the one tiny image, and it's how we get a hologram, right? The whole is actually repeated in the single unit. And I'm like, oh, I get it. And fractals of the body and fractals of the formations of, there's always order, even in chaos, there's order in how everything is created. Like, how many of us have sat there and watched? Anyway, I'm getting off track because I love this so much. But I'm thinking about, have you watched those memes and those where there's, the creation of, the cauliflower florets, and then that same pattern's found in the sunflowers that's found in the ocean of the, like, it just takes out our whole world, and you start to see how much order.
It's like the Fibonacci sequence.
Yes.
If you look up the Fibonacci sequence, that's what that is, isn't it?
Aspect
of that, yeah.
I could just watch that forever and a day and feel inspired by the fact that you can feel so isolated and like you're this tiny drop in an ocean, and who are you to affect anything? And yet you see the patterns and the order that exists within this essentially chaotic world, and you're like, oh my goodness, I'm part of that order. I am that order. Of course, I'm also the chaos, but I am that order, even in the chaos. And it just blows my mind. I find it so inspiring just to remember how much you are a literal fraction of a larger whole. It honestly just blows my mind.
I think that there's almost like those moments when you grasp that, and it's often only kind of like for a couple of minutes, and then you go back to your your triggers and all your stuff. But those times when you fully grasp it, I don't think you even have words, because to have words would distort it, because there are none.
Yes, it's true. Yeah, well said. Sometimes all should be without words.
Yeah.
So what I love about it is just the idea that I literally, and I say this to, I say it in Embark so many times, is you can't see me. So there's no point in me taking any credit or, conversely, any blame for anything that you see in me, because you're not ever able to see me. So, I don't know where the quote originally came from, but I've certainly heard it through the DeMartini circles, which is take no credit, take no blame, just stay focused on chief aim, because it literally has nothing to do with me. What you see and you think, I'm this and I'm magnificent and wonderful, I don't need to take that on or even really believe it. I might let it touch me if it inspires my truth, but it ever shifts into self-righteousness or the flip side being self-wrongousness, then it's completely pointless.
Mm.
So you can't ever see me because all you see is a mirror fraction of you.
And this is
all
also,
you ever see.
yeah. And I mean, even NLP talks a little bit like this, like a little bit about this in terms of that principle that perception is projection. So anything that you perceive in another is your projected self onto them.
Yeah.
Bouncing back to you.
Bouncing back to you. Yeah, exactly. Which sometimes you're going to love because it means that whatever you see that you consider a light or a beautiful quality in someone, you're just seeing a part of yourself that perhaps you need to see right now, or you need to claim or own more thoroughly right now. But it's really so within, so without, right? Like it's that constant reflection of what is within is what is seen without. That's what that means. You see the world as you are, not as it is, because we will all have the same moment and perceive, 100 different realities in that moment. So what is reality? Reality isn't a thing, because all you're ever seeing is your own reflection based on exactly what your subconscious is reflecting back to you to bring conscious to elevate your growth.
Yeah.
Like, it blows my mind.
It always blows my mind too. Yeah. So then it's like, why is this showing up right now? And what's the significance of this?
Yeah,
not like
why now?
Away, like, oh God. It's like, oh God, what is this? Get curious. Because how is it in your awareness for something greater than what you understand right now?
Yeah. I love it so much. I really love how your world is always talking to you. Like, we keep going, oh, I can't connect to myself or the universe or God or whoever, or I need to do this set of rituals in order to connect to the divine within me or, above me or whatever I perceive. But the truth is, you are literally having a conversation with your higher self every waking minute of the day. It just depends whether you want to actually stop and have that conversation or not. But the connection is there because you are literally creating every single moment and continuing a conversation every single moment. And sometimes it's going to feel heavy, sure. Sometimes I'm going to want to exit out of the rear door on that one. But I also find it super fascinating because nothing is, there's no such thing as synchronicity, not really. Everything's co-created. Everything's created in this moment as part of that conversation that you're continuing to have and evolve into. And I kind of just love that. I love the idea that I say this actually to my clients all the time. Okay, but we don't have to go looking for your next best practice because it's right here.
Yeah. Yeah. So what? Yeah. So what's the tussle right now? Because that's your practice
right now. The thing that's reflected to you, the thing that you're butting your head against, the thing that keeps cropping up, the thing that's driving you nuts, the thing you're seeing all of the time. Reflection. That is your next step to where you want to go. You don't go, oh, you know what? I don't like that, so I'm going to do this practice over here. That doesn't work for me. I don't feel good, so I'll choose this practice and then I'll feel good. No, your best practice is right here in the conversation you're having with the universe. Don't go looking for something else. It's here, right here. What do you need to be here? What do you need to take this further? Like right here, reality as you see it, because it's who you are right now or who you're trying to become or own or work out or whatever the thing is, that is your practice. Don't go looking for something that feels better. I'm going to chuck that in there because that feels better. That looks like that'd be a better thing. That'll get me to where I want to go. Nope. The thing that's showing up, the obstacle, the practice, the reflection is the thing.
It's kind of it's a deeper version of bringing the truth of like that idea, like the grass is greener on the other side. No. Like it's right. It becomes greener when you like look at where you're planted and see what's here. Like, what can I walk through that to make this a more lush experience or to make this a more lush reality? Then like thinking that I've got to skip over that into this thing over there, which will have its own new set of challenges that you haven't, met yet because you tried to go around them. Right?
Yeah, 100%. It's right here. You don't actually have to go and see a guru to work out your next best practice.
Mm.
You literally are revealing it to yourself in every moment.
Mm.
So be with that reality, knowing it will always transform into whatever it is you need to be with next. Like, it's always changing, right? Part of what I love about it too is when we can see that we are really just constant projector screens. Every time we assume, every time we say, well, I already know what he or she is going to say or think or do or act. I already know how this situation is going to roll. You're already projecting and you're already replaying that same movie. So anytime you're doing that, it's only because of a past that you are living in the present moment. Because if you were right here and you wiped the slate clean and you just started here with an open, completely open, no history holding on to heart space, you would totally change that reality. Right? But what I love about it particularly in relationship is when you can see your stories, when you know your projector reels, the ones that you keep playing and you just store them away in your library. You know, we might call them voids. I mean, we've certainly spoken about voids in this podcast a lot, but there's certain reels of beliefs that we continuously revert to, that we are hardwired to continuously see the world through that set of lenses or that movie. And I think when you work out what your go-to projector screens are, or movie reels, it becomes a lot easier, I find, to be able to be in relationship in a more wholehearted way, because I know what my movie reels are. I know my movie reels of choice, even when it's my subconscious that's choosing them. I go, oh, this cat, yeah, I've met you many times before. Probably means this isn't real. Better unplug from the matrix. Right? Like, that's how I look at it. I know these reels so well that when look, I think some of them are so deep that, like our voids, we will continuously be diving into them and pulling gold out of them. Some of them that are less, we may equilibrate and never have to revisit again. And then I think when life gets stressful and we're having a time of growth, we'll probably revert to an old neuro pathway when we haven't got all of the energy and the store bank for how we would consciously like to be in this moment. So I'm always aware that it's not a matter of someday I will evolve so much that this will just never be a problem for me. I will always revert. So best that I know my enemy like a friend.
Yeah.
So I practice knowing my stories. I practice knowing when I feel left out. Like, that's a big one for me. I'm isolated and left out. I have no friends. So whenever that starts to play, I'm like, oh, hello. Not true. All right. Good to know. Don't have to go down that tunnel anymore, because I know I just turn off that movie now. Look for the opposite, equilibrate it. What else? I was just trying to think, what else would it be? Mine would be, I have to always be in service and you're here to take advantage of me. You know, take advantage of my service. I'm here to serve you and you take me for granted. Oh, hello, old story. You don't get me and don't want to meet me. Oh, hello, old real. Right? And so I see these play and I'm like, oh, I find this really empowering, because when I know my old stories, it becomes very easeful to change my current reality and therefore my future. And I wonder how different relationship would be if we all just knew our stories so well that we went, oh, baby, I'm projecting right now. Let me just do my thing to turn off my projector. And I'm going to start from a clean slate and an open heart and meet you in that space. I bet my reality would be completely different. So I really love knowing this law of reflection and transparency, because I find it exciting. Like you were talking about, I wonder why I think that. Where did that come from? What is this here for? How can I love this more deeply? Because when I love it in you, I love it within me.
That's why intimate relationship and family is actually one of the most powerful, like, areas to grow yourself, because the reflections will often be so intense that if you can stay in that intensity and grow through that intensity and own the reflections there, what's possible to take out into the world is greater. Because the more that you can say, I am that, I even think that with my daughter when she's so aggressive and fierce, and I really have to work hard to hold that and not shame that and be with more of that. I actually visualize myself kind of like melting, like holding her, but melting into that and saying, yes, I can love that too. Yes, I can meet that too. Yes, I see that as beautiful too. Because that's for me to own in me just as much of it as it's to guide and parent in her. And the less that I can be with that, the higher up that notch gets turned in the world, either in your family or outside of you. So I find that really, I just think that if we have this lens on our life, then we can see the person in front of us and the world around us as a constantly unfolding mystery. The more that we're open to seeing more.
And how exciting to know yourself so deeply and actually be able to interact with yourself. It's kind of like existing in between worlds, isn't it? I mean, it's beautiful when you think about it.
Yeah, it's an opportunity for it it's an opportunity for enchantment, right? Like it's where you have more questions than answers. And I think that that's when life opens up, when you can be in the questions and let the questions lead you forward.
Who did you say wrote this saying, which was you become?
Oh, yeah, Arthur Schopenhauer was a philosopher, and he said that, yeah. What was it? Yeah, so you become your true self to the degree that you make everyone and everything yourself. So that means you are the hero and the villain. You are the saint and the sinner. You are the builder and the destroyer. Because all around you, you'll be perceiving either of those according to your values. So if you have a high value on the environment, you will perceive those who are doing conservation work as the builders and the healers, and that those who are either not valuing the environment or, you know, mining, for example, as the destroyers. So where are you a destroyer? In what form is your destruction currently? And you get really laser focused on what you perceive in that, and you go, oh, I see. I don't destroy you know, aspects of the earth in a mine, but I can see that I can destroy parts of the earth in the way that I behave with my vehicle, in my car, with the way that I behave on my own land, with the way that I behave in relationship. Where am I destroying? Because we're both creators and destroyers, and the more that you disown your own destruction, the more that you will see destruction around you as an invitation to move closer to where that is in you.
Yes, 100%. So if you took your traits at the moment that you struggle with the most, that you see reflected around you, perhaps in an in-law or a parent or a child or a partner or a colleague, then what we're essentially asking you to do is consider and contemplate that if this is just light bouncing back at you, and this is the next practice to where you want to go, which is a bigger place, one assumes, whatever you wish to achieve or attain this year, it goes, cool, let's deal with this. This is part of this. Let's break this blockage down. Let's open this power up, whatever it is. And these can be light qualities too. So it can be, you know, I just think, Bridget's so magnificent in all of her knowledge and her wisdom, and I perceive I don't have any of those. Well, the truth is you're not really seeing Bridget anyway. What you're seeing is you. So if you just wrote down everybody that you think is amazing, and you wrote down the trait that you put to them, then it's still the same thing. This is in you.
And I remember a coach saying this to me once, and it took me so long to really grasp it, because the more infatuated you are with someone, the much, much harder it is to see that in you, because you've built it up so much. But the truth is, you have exactly the same thing in your own highest values. Like, so whatever you most value is where you will have wisdom, where you'll have knowledge. And conversely, whatever you most resent, like in somebody or just collectively, the harder and harder it will be to own in you, because you've made it, you've put it so far down in like a pit that you don't want to see that and don't want to be that. So because your self-righteous persona, which we all have self-righteous personas, you would challenge your current identity too much to own those things that you've collectively put into somebody else, that your brain and subconscious wants to hold on to that being in that person, because if it's over there, then it's like safer. I don't have to like distort my perception of myself and my own who I think I am, to actually see that and embody that. So I'll just make it in them. So I'm not that, right? Or actually it's like, what is it that's most challenging here? You know, where am I? Like, where am I vindictive? Where do I attack others? Right? So the things that you think that you're not, because you've built your identity on whatever you've built it on, the practice is going, okay, there's something here for me. Where is it? And sometimes we actually need, it can be good practice to even go to bed like at night and say to yourself, all right, brain, let's work together. I'm ready to see what you're hiding from me right now. I'm ready to see what I'm disowning. I'm ready to work with examples of me as that. So where am I that? Because our brain, because it's a value-seeking organ, it wants to show us what we're willing to see, and often we'll hide what we're not willing to see in ourselves in order to protect our identity. That's more of kind of our animal behavior. But as that Schopenhauer quote says, you become your true self to the degree to which you make everyone and everything yourself. Your higher self is trying to get you to own your villain and your hero, like to see that you're both. And it's your lower mind that's saying, no, I can't be that, and I can't be that, and I can't be that, and I've got to kind of maintain this, like, you know, perfect straitjacket of who I am, when in fact you're all of it. And the degree to which you can put all of it out there is the degree to which you're being authentic and yourself. But we hide things from ourselves because we build identities, and that's what it means to be human. So part of working through this is creating safety for yourself to see some of those things you disown. And Julie and I do this all the time. Like, we're always going, oh, ouch.
Identities are still limiting.
Yeah.
They're like labels, right? It still creates a box. And the truth is, you're never meant to stay in the box.
No.
So you want your world to be bigger. You want your reality to be other than it is right now. That requires a dismantling and a reconfiguration of the next box you put yourself in. And so whatever's in the way of that, or whatever needs to be included in order to expand into the next box, is the thing that's reflected to you, right?
Yeah.
But your world does get bigger and more easeful the more you can be, as you were saying, Bridget, which is very much just at its crux, the tantric practice of saying yes to life, rather than no, yes, okay, yes, no, yes, as opposed to that, which is very fighting battles all of the time. Imagine if the amount of energy you spent fighting battles and putting energy out on it's you, not me. What could you do with that energy? When all of a sudden you were like, no charge, that's cool. You do you.
Yeah.
Where am I going to divert that energy now? What would you do with that? That's how your world gets bigger. You can love bigger and your world gets bigger. because you're not wasting so much energy on pointless shit going out from you.
It's really true.
Really true. And so that's how it expands our parenting and how we meet our children. And I hope is also on the path to how we try to see our children as much as is humanly possible as their own person, not just as my spewed out mirror reflection that I choose to manipulate. Because ultimately I wonder sometimes how much we really see our children, really, because we just so often just see the parts of ourselves in them, and then we're like, oh, you know, and we're kind of wrestling with this like thing inside of us based on what it's meant for us previously or what it means for us now or what we project it will mean for us in the future. It's all very us focused.
Yeah.
Versus what does it look like to go, wow, okay, this is me too. This is me too. And when I can see that I'm projecting and I turn that off, who do I see then? How can I fan your flames? How can I love you into your personhood rather than into a version of me? You know? I had this awakening moment, actually. It's maybe a little bit of a digression. Do you want me to mention this? Or
Sure. Give it a go.
All right. Well, only because it's relevant to parenting and to this conversation, which is, I mean, you and I are continuously working on our traits and how to be more of a yes to the world. Like, we're continuously doing it. That is our practice. So one of the traits I was working on was being copied. And I've been working on that one for a really long time. And I'm working on it.
It's a big trigger.
It's a big trigger. But it's not that it's a big trigger. I find it really hard to be with because it hits so many of my old wounds. So it's not so much that I'm like triggered as in battling, but I find it personally really hard. And the amount of energy that gets diverted in that process, I'm not comfortable with. So I'm like, I know I could be using that energy for inspiration and creating shit, and instead it's diverted over here. I'm not okay with that. Let's be efficient in our energy resources here. So I'm working on this one. So anyway, I had a massive breakthrough just this week that I think is just like, I'm like, holy fucking shit. Now, I don't know if anyone else is going to get this, but Bridgie, you will.
Yeah.
So I listed all of these moments in space and time as part of the DeMartini method that I perceived copying, you know, where I was, blah, 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 all the things that we do. And then I'm asking myself, if this entire world is orchestrated upon equilibration, then everything is happening at the same time. So the opposite and equal trait is happening in exactly the same moment. So for the intensity of which I'm being absolutely copied in this moment, there is an equal total rejection of me, right? Someone's trying to be me while someone's trying to reject me. Like, those two things will be happening in exactly the same moment.
Yeah.
And it was the first time I went, you know, when you have one of those brain bursts.
I visualize it like kind of like the wave particles of like space time, kind of like just, you know, like that ripple in a pond, and like you have that big ripple and then it goes out.
Right.
Like,
it's the shit you and I get high for.
And then, like, you know, and then like reality kind of bends and distorts and reorganizes.
Yeah.
That's what happens. It's actually what happens. Yeah.
It's so cool.
Yeah.
And I realized I found the most recent memory, and then I traced every other memory that I'd written down, and I was like, holy fucking shit. Like, I could cry when I think about it now. In every moment that I'm being absolutely copied, I'm being absolutely rejected by Gwen.
Oh, wow, by Gwen.
Which I had this heart burst when I was like, fuck. So in every way another human is trying to be me, she's rejecting me so she can be her own human.
Oh, that's so cool and beautiful.
Oh, I can't tell you how my heart bursts. Like, I could seriously cry when I think about it, because there could be nothing more meaningful to me in this world than my children saying, I can't be you, I need to be me.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And so I had this moment where I was like, please copy me. If someone's got to pick up this trait, right, in the universe where everything is happening in this moment, someone has to do it. I would rather it was someone I don't really care about than my child.
Oh, that's just magic.
Like, yeah, you feel it. No one else might follow along with that. But
I just love it. Oh my God.
My heart just absolutely burst. And it was like, when you've hit it and you get that cataclysm, like, and I could see all of the moments. And I was like, fucking, I'm so good with it. I'm so please do it, because it frees my child from having to copy me and be me, because I don't want them to be. If there is anything my heart would desire more, it's that if the rejection of me is what helps you find you, I'm so down for that.
And that's a beautiful thing too, is that like how powerful it is to actually sit in the magnificence of our children rejecting us, because when they're rejecting us, they're saying yes to themselves.
Right. And this was so big. I shared it with Nick. I was like, oh my God, I've just had this moment where I've realized, and even he teared up. He was like,
really?
Yeah, I see that.
Wow.
Oh, it was magic, Bridget. It was honestly magic. And so this thing that I've been wrestling with and struggling with for such a long time, all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, please, because you are doing me a service in that you are freeing my child in this moment.
And that's when you know you've equilibrated it, because you now say to that, like, thank you. Like you say to that person, thank you, I love you.
I literally was. Like, I'm still doing it. I'm still like, please.
Yeah. Don't go too far, though.
No, fair enough. But I was totally like just
But you wouldn't change it now, because you see the function of it.
I wouldn't change it for the world. But it made me think about, our children needing to, how do we really see them? Well, I think part of that is turning off that she doesn't need to be me. I don't want her to be me. So I don't know. That's how I got there. But it was a big moment. I had this week.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it was probably totally different law. But anyway, this is the cool shit we do in Soul Driven Motherhood.
Yeah, and it's what we're going to be doing this month. So if you want some of this in your world, come and jump in.
Yes, because for a solid period of time, we want to get everybody backtracking now that we've set all of our intentions, created our physical space to manifest and be the conduit to those manifestations from January. We want you to declutter and clear the mental decks to be able to say yes to more of life within you, and by virtue of that outside of you. So yes to better relationships, yes to better parenting, but not because you have to be something, because you just have to love something. So that's what we're going to be doing every week in Soul Driven Motherhood for at least the next month, and then we'll see where we're at from there. So please come and join us for Elixir in March in Soul Driven Motherhood. It's just $39 for the whole month. And we're in there facilitating you through some pretty cool processes. So we hope dearly that you have those heart-opening, soul-melting moments like I just spoke about. So you can find out more at nourishingthemother.com.au, Nourishing the Mother on socials, Instagram and Facebook, and connect with you, Bridge.
SuburbanSandcastles.com. And you, Jules?
Is julietenner.love.
Remember to nourish the woman to rock the family.
And we'll see you next week when we continue to peel back the layers on your mothering journey.
And if you want to support Nourishing the Mother and all the late nights, the early mornings, the blood, sweat and tears we pour into our art, then please go to patreon.com/NTM podcast and become our patron. As a patron, you're helping all of the cost of operating this podcast, the hosting, the editing, the transcription, helping all of that be completely covered, and joining a community who are all about honouring our journeys and continuing to open. The more support we have, the longer we can last. So become a patron. We'd love to have you. Go to patreon.com/NTM podcast. We literally couldn't do this without you. Thank you so much for listening, and please share this podcast with anyone you think it would be medicine for.
This has been a production of TheWellnessCouch.com. Check us out on Facebook and join in the conversation on Facebook.com/TheWellnessCouch. Subscribe to each show on iTunes and check us out on Twitter. The Wellness Couch, streaming wellness into your lives. Whilst the Wellness Couch presenter endeavor to provide accurate and helpful information to their listeners, these podcasts cannot take into account individual circumstances and are not intended to be a substitute for health and medical advice from a qualified health professional. You should always seek the advice of a qualified health professional before acting on any of the information provided by any of the Wellness Couch podcasts.